Hello and welcome along to the VMTV Rugby Pod. Well, slightly different today, and we have a special guest in the one and only Ian Madigan. Pleasure to have you. How are you keeping?
Very good. Thanks for having me on the show. Big fan.
Yeah, no problem at all. Great to get a listener there, Ian. I just want to talk. You obviously retired recently with a glittering career. I suppose the biggest highlight, 31 caps for Ireland. On a basic sense, how are you? I know it'll take a bit of time, but how are you adapting to it, and why was now the right time to retire?
Yeah, slowly adapting. There's plenty of challenges. Starting off your day, going into a change room of 40 guys is very different to starting your day either working from home or going into an office. So that's definitely been an adjustment. But I've been lucky. Like I was working part time as such with data ships over the last 2 years, so I was able to do kind of a day a week with them. So I had a good understanding of what I was getting into post rugby, and been in a full-time role to now for a few months and beginning to find my feet.
I suppose we better strip it back and all the way down to Willow Park and Blackrock. What are we saying? Can you believe 20 odd years later that you've had such a good and established career?
Yeah, it was mad. Like when I was putting together the announcement, I was bringing back a lot of very fond memories. Playing in Blackrock was so much fun. Playing alongside your friends is pure rugby. It doesn't get any better than that. And then I was very lucky. I got the opportunity to join the Leinster Sub Academy and then progress through into the academy and onto a development contract, and to play alongside the likes of Brian O'Driscoll, Shane Horgan, and these guys who you would idolise growing up through school was a dream come true. And yeah, lots of fond memories in the RDS.
Look, it would take us 3 days to cover your whole career, but if we touch on Leinster, you were there 7 years, probably a bit before that as well. I have you down 2009 to 2016, but going into that sub-academy, what experience was that? And then making your first cap, give us a wee bit about that.
Yeah, I think it's very different. Back in 2007 when I was leaving school, you didn't really know what the pathway was. I think, whereas if you talk to 17, 18-year-old leaving Blackrock or St Michael's now, they'll know, right, the journey for me is into the sub-academy or academy, a year or two at under 20s, and then the goal then is to get a development contract and kick on from there. I wouldn't have known that back then. I definitely knew that I wanted to be a professional rugby player. It was just figuring out how I was going to get there. But yeah, I was very lucky. I came in under Michael Cheika, and I had the likes of Dave Fagan doing my strength and conditioning in the early days, and managed to get some weight on me, because I would only been maybe 78, 79 kilos leaving school, and Michael Cheika at the time made it clear that you needed to be kind of 87, 88 to be able to compete in the men's game. And that was the start of it. And then Michael Cheika moved on, and the best coach in the world arrived into Leinster, and Joe Schmidt, and he took me under his wing, and I would have learned a huge amount of him, and that very much set me up for my career. He educated me on the multiple different ways that the game could be played. From a personal point of view, he was huge on being the best passer in the team, for example. So I would have worked really hard on that, and the individual analysis of my game with Joe was a great foundation for my career.
Give us an idea of the competition around there. There's obviously Johnny Sexton, Ian McKinley. Who else was there? And was it a good competitive environment, or was there a bit of, geez, I need to get this 10 jersey?
Yeah, it was. It was very competitive. Like even for me in school, one of my best mates, Dar Fitzpatrick, was brilliant out half, and I started in the team when I was in fourth year in school, and then Dara started in fifth year, and then we kind of played multiple positions together in sixth year, both finding a position in the team. I was fullback and he was out half. The difference between me and Dara was I had an extra year at the under-20s, which I needed. I wasn't ready at 18 or 19 to go into the professional game like the likes of Luke Fitzgerald was, because he was physically so strong leaving school. So yeah, and then when I left school and I was in the mix, Ian McKinley would have been the same age. We played Gaelic football with Kilmacud Crokes growing up. And then the year ahead of us was another Ian, and Ian Keatley, who was established at the time. He was just off the back of winning the Grand Slam with the Irish under-20s then. So yeah, there was some really good competition in there, and it was good fun working together. We all kind of spurred each other on. Ian then moved on. Ian Keatley moved on to Connacht, and Ian McKinley got his shot with Leinster before I did, and would have had a fantastic career with Leinster and Ireland had he not picked up that unfortunate eye injury. But he showed how resolute he was in sticking at it, and to become an international with Italy was one of the greatest feats that I've seen in my time playing.
Was there ever a time in that period, starting out just through the academy, you thought maybe this isn't going to work out?
Yeah, it was probably before then. I missed a really important kick in school to knock.
I didn't want to bring that up.
That's all right. I'm at peace with it now. It's taken 15 years. But yeah, when I missed that kick in sixth year, I would have definitely had professional rugby on my horizon from junior cup level when I was 14, 15, and then playing in the senior cup team when I was in fourth year. That was when I realised, look, this could be an avenue for me, and the school was very supportive of that. Obviously studies came first, but they made sure that I talked to current professional players and that I knew a potential pathway there. But yeah, when I missed that kick, I was like, maybe professional rugby's not for me. But it was really when my friends in my year rallied around me, and they were like, no, man, you got to go after this. This is just a setback. And at the time, I didn't see it. And I probably had fallen out of love with the game. I didn't get on particularly well with my coach in sixth year in Blackrock. And then I moved to Blackrock Rugby Club and was met by Greg McWilliams, who's coaching in St. Michael's as well at the time. And his style of play was very similar to what Joe Schmidt would have gone on to do. He was, a lot of big focus on skills and ball and play, and using the full width of the pitch. And I really enjoyed his system and very much fell back in love with the game, and that worked well as I was going through the academy. So that was probably the only time in my career that I thought maybe this isn't for me. Went on to have plenty of setbacks, but those earlier setbacks that I had in school definitely stood me well and made me kind of, more resolute.
And I can see from your top there, Blackrock College RFC, the school, yes, you have to, obviously a massive part, but also the club you touched on there. How big an influence have they been?
Yeah, the club's been great. It's a great network, not just of past pupils, but people from other schools. Blackrock isn't just to service the school, and they're very passionate about that. But yeah, look, they took me under their wing when I came in after that disappointment in school, and there would have been times when I was in the academy in Leinster that Leinster would have put Blackrock under a bit of pressure to play me, and I mightn't have necessarily deserved to play at that young age of 18, 19, 20, but they pushed me forward, and those,
in the likes of the All-Ireland League and stuff.
Yeah, and like the All-Ireland League that I played in was really, really high standard. I know it took a bit of a dip, and it's definitely come back to those heights again. Looking at the AIL over the last few years, the standards really, really improved, and isn't far off the professional game now. But yeah, like playing in that league, I was playing alongside a lot of other guys who went on to play professionally, and looking back, that was probably a big reason why Blackrock ended up getting relegated a few times, was because they had a crop of players from the age of kind of 18 to 22 that I think 11 or 12 of us ended up turning professional, and then that created a big gap. There wasn't the same number backing us professional players up, but look, the club led by Mick Hardy have done a fantastic job in going back to basics. They've done a huge job in redoing the club, the pitches, putting in a new gym, getting good coaches in, good strength and conditioning staff, and both the underage, the men's game and the women's game is as strong as it's ever been.
Over your 7 years at Leinster, I have there that you've 2 Champions Cup winners, medals, 2 Pro 12 titles, and we were talking off air about the finals you lost. But come back to the European final in 2012 at Twickenham. I was there crying in the stands when you come on. I think you beat us nearly by 50 at that stage. But just pick a couple of highlights from your time in blue with Leinster. Yeah,
coming on in that European final was a great experience. Now, the game was very much won at that stage, but it was a real gift to come on in that game. You come on and really throw the ball around, and we did that. I think we racked up a few tries in the last 10-15 minutes, and winning the European Cup is an amazing feeling. But at the same time, the European Cups, they do mean a lot to me, but I didn't contribute as much as I would have to, let's say, there was one league title in particular that I think I played every game, and that's a medal that means a huge amount to me. Similar when Leinster won the Challenge Cup. I know it's the second tier, but quite often it's what you contribute. And when I look back at my time in Bristol, and even though it was the championship and it's the second tier of English rugby, it was it was a great journey to go on. When I arrived in Bristol, the team was a bit all over the place, and led by Pat Lam. It was some turnaround we had in 12 months, and then going on to compete in the Premiership was a brilliant experience, and one that I was delighted to be at the centre of.
You talked about Bristol, but if we go back to Bordeaux for a year that you went after Leinster, was the time for a fresh challenge, or which way did you see it when you went to France? And what was your experience like out there?
Yeah, for me, I felt I was stagnating a bit in Leinster, and Johnny had been away for a couple of seasons in Racing, which for me personally was good for getting more opportunities. I then had a season when he'd come back, and then there was other young players coming through at that stage, like Robbie Henshaw had just been signed from Connacht, Gary Ringrose was coming through. So there wasn't as much opportunity to fit into the backline as there would have been in the previous 3 or 4 seasons. So I was keen to challenge myself to be the number one out half in a club, and got the opportunity to go over to Bordeaux. On the face of it, it looked like a really good move. They just qualified for the Champions Cup for the first time. They had lots of quality internationals. The likes of Adam Ashley Cooper was there. He'd spoke very highly about the club. And then when I got there, I only had a short pre-season because I was away with Ireland and South Africa, and dove straight into the top 14. I never really had a whole lot of confidence in our game plan, but we were winning games, and we got to the end of November, and we're coming second in the top 14, and everything was rosy. And then I picked up an injury, and then coincided with that, the team went on a losing streak. I think we lost 5 or 6 games in a row, and in France, they're very reactionary when that happens. And I came back from my injury, wasn't playing particularly well because I wasn't fully recovered. And yeah, the wheels came off in quite a quick. It happened quite quickly. And it was really then that the coach got sacked, and they brought in a new coach, and the club was just very unsettled, and I felt like I needed more security, and it was then that the opportunity came to go to Bristol. I had a few conversations with Pat Lam, and he kind of sold me the long-term plan for the club. At that stage it was clear that Bristol were going to be in the championship, that the relegation had pretty much been sealed. But I view it as very much a kind of three-year plan, and made the decision to go there.
And you did do 3 years there. Was it always Bristol? Was there other options, or was it in your head, was it, I'm going with Pat Lam and leading that team at 10 in the championship and then on to the Premiership like you did?
Yeah, look, there was options to go to other clubs in France, and at the time it was rugby was flying. There was so much money washing around in the game. I was lucky from a financial point of view, and I'd spoken to some other clubs in the UK, and it was really Pat's vision that I bought into at the time. Having played in the World Cup 2 years previous to then be playing in the Championship and playing in some of those pretty less glamorous fixtures, there was a big step down, and there was times when I did question my decision, but
like Rotherham away and those sort of Doncaster and those tough, difficult pitches, and there's some good players there, but just maybe the facilities aren't what you've been used to.
Yeah, no, there was lots of tough games. Like we I remember the first game in the Championship we played Ealing, and they should have beaten us. We got very lucky. Matt Prothero scored 2 amazing tries in the last 5 minutes. I remember thinking, geez, this isn't going to be easy. Yeah, and it wasn't. There was lots of games that were still tied after 50, 60 minutes, and then maybe our fitness levels or our tactical nous got us over the line, but you knew you were in a game for a lot of those Championship ones. They were very physical, big strong packs, and passionate local supporters. So it was pure rugby back then.
Would it be fair to say your last year at Bristol was probably quite tricky, so you played more of a helping role for the likes of Callum Sheedy? Would that be fair enough? And how did you sort of deal with that sort of side of things? Yeah,
the last year in Bristol was tough. I didn't play a whole lot. Callum Sheedy was coming through and was doing a great job, and I knew that the writing was on the wall for me. And obviously it was unfortunate when COVID came around, but I remember at the time being quite happy to get a break from rugby, and gave me a chance to kind of reassess where I was at in my career, physically set some new goals, and I was lucky I was able to build a home gym, and we were still able to train in the local park in Bristol. And yeah, just use that time to get myself in good shape. I'd signed for Ulster then, and was very lucky to go into a great squad and dive straight into the tail end of their season, where they were they had a couple of regular season league games and then straight into the knockouts, and to be thrown right into a semi-final to come on and kick a winner was really special, and that meant a huge amount to me because I put a lot of work in to get myself back to where I needed to be, having had a few injuries and a bit of loss of form. That was the confidence booster that I needed.
Tell us more about sunny Belfast, where you, when that call came to go across and move, did you think, Jesus, there's a chance to get back playing in Ireland, obviously, but also maybe in the Ireland radar as well? Yeah,
very much so. I would have had my eyes on this World Cup, but before that, to try and force my way back into the Irish squad. If you're playing in one of the provinces and you're playing well and you're starting week in, week out, you're not far away. And then if your province can start winning games and winning competitions, you're going to get picked. It's not rocket science figuring that out. And I felt like I had a good first year. I think I played maybe 20 games, and was really excited heading into the second season. They finished the first year with the Rainbow Cup, and I played in the last game of that, and I thought I played well at out half, and kind of felt, look, heading into year two, I'm going to get more chances. And my first chance didn't come, I think, until like maybe the 10th game of the season. So, and I felt like I'd put together a good pre-season. I was top of the charts, lifting, fitness wise. Thought I was performing really well in training, but I just couldn't force my way into the team.
Proudest moment in an Ulster jersey was the kick against Edinburgh in that semi-final, yeah?
No, my proudest moment was dealing with not getting picked for such a long period of time and still being a positive influence in the squad. It's tough as a professional rugby player. The team gets picked on a Monday. On
that, did you know that Billy Burns was going to be the number one for a while, or how did you deal with that?
No, like as a professional sports person, whether someone says it to you or not, you're not going to believe it. You're just going to be like, well, I'm going to prove to you why I should be the number one. So, and I look back at my time in Ulster and I go, well, I gave it my best shot, and I've no regrets on that. But yeah, it was still a really enjoyable few seasons there. They're a really special group of guys, and I hope their time comes soon with winning some silverware. But
I could even tell, just finishing up in Ulster, you felt you could have given more to that club if you had got more time on the pitch.
Yeah, I'd have loved to have played more on the pitch, and it killed me when I'd bump into supporters on the street and they'd be asking me, why aren't you getting in? And you're just trying to reassure them, look, I'm trying my best, but just not getting the breaks. And yeah, look, that's professional sport. There's lots of stuff that's out of your control, and you just got to try and control the controllables.
We fairly rattled through this, but we must touch on your 31 caps for Ireland. Debut in 2013.
Yep.
Biggest moment, against France in Cardiff.
Yeah,
I think we have a few shots here, Nathan, do we, for him? No, I'm sure he hasn't seen these before. I don't know. Yeah. So sick of those, are you, Ian?
Every Friday night I had to look at that for a couple of years. But yeah, look, some great memories. A lot of my best memories actually came against France. I remember we won the Six Nations over there in Paris, and then my first cap, we drew in the Six Nations, on a pretty wet night in Lansdowne Road. But yeah, look, that the clip that you showed there of playing in the World Cup was, it's the pinnacle of the game, and to get an opportunity like that and start a quarter final was a memory that I'll hold on to forever.
People say, it means everything to play for Ireland, which it obviously does. Not that I've ever done it, but for you, 31 caps, did you have outside of that special moment, what other sort of big days did you have in the Ireland jersey, and what other big wins did you, I suppose, just the memories come back to you?
Yeah, lots of fond memories. I love the summer tours. Like I remember going over to Canada and America. It was a young group of players. The Lions was on at the time, and yeah, we really came together, and a lot of those guys went on, you know, it was maybe only their second or third cap. They went on to get 30, 40, 50 caps. Argentina was another fantastic tour, and South Africa is always a great place to go. So yeah, hold dearly those. And then the Six Nations campaigns, you know, I was very lucky to have won 2 of those. And yeah, even like when the big countries like South Africa and Australia and New Zealand come over to play in November, they're amazing games to be part of, and I was very lucky to have my fair share of them.
The best coach you've worked with in your professional time?
I was very lucky. Lots of very, very good coaches, and you know, had different strengths, and you know, focused on different things. Like Michael Cheika coming in at the start, and you know, how different he was to how I was coached in school. You know, Joe Schmidt was the coach that I had for the longest time in my career, and would have very much brought me from a young player into, you know, a more accomplished player within the team. And then, you know, Pat Lam is a fantastic coach. You know, he leaves no stone unturned. His reviews are as detailed as I've ever come across. And you know, I hope they get the success they deserve in Bristol. And Dan McFarlane's a brilliant coach as well. You know, he's running a really good team there with Dan Soper and Dinger, and they've just been a bit unlucky over the last couple of seasons, but I really hope the supporters stick by them and come good. But if I was to pick one, it'd be Joe Schmidt. No show like a Joe show.
Great to get off the fence. So retirement's come. You talked about data ships, you're working at Blackrock College RFC, but also the media side of things. How much are you enjoying it? You seem to be loving it and trying to learn all the time, but also like just seems as if it's just normal.
Yeah, it's been great. Like even doing the 20s World Cup game, and getting out for a round of golf with you and getting some feedback on what you thought was good and what I needed to work on.
Wouldn't be listening to that, Ian, wouldn't we?
I know, you're very sharp. It's yeah, look, and then getting in for the World Cup. I suppose the timing of my retirement rolling into the World Cup is good, in the sense that there's a lot of opportunities to either work on TV or work in the media. And when Brian Gleeson approached me about, you know, being involved for the World Cup, I was delighted. I thought maybe I'm not prepared enough for it, but off the back of your advice, I managed to scramble together. And yeah, look, going in and working alongside the likes of, you know, Matt Williams, who you would have watched on TV for the last, you know, 15 years anyway, and you know, suddenly he's giving you tips on, look, this is how I think you should deliver these points, or, you know, I thought this was good. You know, sitting in the box sharing it with, you know, Dave McIntyre and Royal Nugent was a bit surreal. You know, they're such distinct voices that you would have listened to calling games over the years, and you know, you're there sharing a comms box with them has been a great experience. So yeah, it's something I've really enjoyed, and hopefully get a bit more of it.
Yeah, you seem to be very studious with your analysis, you know, sending clips back and forward. Is this something you'd like to go on with? But also, like, would you be a big studier of the game?
Yeah, I love watching the game, and I would have enjoyed throughout my career cutting up clips, you know, over the weekend to then present them to the head coaches, and then you look, sometimes they like them, sometimes they won't, and you might give suggestions on what plays, but they definitely like you doing it because it's giving them more options. Then, you know, every head coach loves information, more power they have, and I find doing the work on TV isn't a whole lot different. You know, you're analysing the game. The way I look at games, I think, is quite different to how a lot of other people do. And then I have, you know, pretty strong opinions on how I like the game to be played and what I think is good. And yeah, so just, I suppose, sharing those views and opinions with the public has been enjoyable.
People say retirement will be difficult. It seems to be being a professional and living that life, and what a life or a rugby career you've had. But is that why you want to stay in rugby as well, and realise there will be some difficult days, but if you can stay with the media and the rugby and also keep learning, you know, it'll maybe, I suppose, for the next 10 years keep you sort of interested, but also is that the next plan, and make sure you know exactly what you want to do? Yeah,
like for me, I'm trying to find my feet with data ships. You know, I've a lot to learn there. You know, it wasn't too long ago that the guys were pretty much helping me how to structure writing an email. You know, it's the speed at which I type at needed to improve. You know, there were real basic things, but look, I'm getting there slowly but surely with them. I think, you know, where my knowledge lies is in rugby. It's all I've known for the last 15 years, and you know, to completely move away from that would have been a shame, and to do the punditry, but very much also to be involved with a team in Blackrock, and you know, feel that buzz when they're going out for a training on a Tuesday and a Thursday, and you know, share the ups and downs of winning and losing games is something that you know, I certainly wasn't ready to let go of.
Do you think in 10 years' time, or if you keep like coaching, do you think that could be a career path for you professionally?
Yeah, yeah, it would be. I think, you know, I've dipped my toe into it now, and working with James Blaney in Blackrock, he gives me free rein on some of my drills, so I'm able to work the guys hard and figure out, you know, what works well, what the players enjoy doing, what do they find challenging. And yeah, I think for me, it's just about building that kind of repertoire and you know, building over the next few years. And if it is something that I want to pursue, that I've got the skills to do that.
Well, there you have it. In 25 minutes, we've had the career of Ian Madigan. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks, Stu.